Welcome back to our channel, where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. We are excited to share the following news. King Charles's last wish shatters. The palace elevates Catherine to power after William collapses. An intimate source asserts that Buckingham Palace is seeing the crown's gradual transformation from the king's last entreaty to the ascendancy of a new sovereign ally, Prince William. This event will probably be chronicled by history not via the resounding canons of a coronation, but rather in the muted hush of an intimate drawing room. A profound wave of heartbreak has engulfed the royal family after a private gathering where Prince William allegedly collapsed, not due to a medical emergency, but under the immense emotional burden of a revelation that has fundamentally transformed the trajectory of the British monarchy. The impetus for this extraordinary exhibition of passion was a communication from the Princess Anne. King Charles III issued a conclusive request about the future of the crown, which has rendered both the monarchy and the population in disbelief. What may the king have spoken that profoundly affected his heir? Today we reveal the poignant, tragic, and ultimately transforming narrative behind the king's deathbed. Wish a mandate that compelled Prince William to kneel and elevated Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to an unprecedented position of authority inside the House of Windsor. William's hidden grief, the life burden. In a tense, airless moment in Windsor Castle's secret apartments, Prince William, born into scrutiny, expectations, and a crown, broke down. The fall was not dramatic like in movies. No one cried, no knees crashed, and no one quavered in front of a sobbing crowd. Instead, it was more quiet and meaningful. A guy who had spent his life preparing for assurance was slowly and painfully disintegrated into the unknown. His breathing became erratic, a stark contrast to his decades-long military elegance. He felt that every ruler from William the Conqueror to Elizabeth II had discreetly gathered in the room to see his reaction, centuries of history weighing on him. His hands, usually strong as wood, suddenly grabbed the polished mahogany table edge until his knuckles became white. His jaw clenched and he focused on a future that had changed. His father's words, stated by Princess Anne in precise syllables, rang in his memory like a bell. Not just agony, but deep understanding damaged his eyes. Fate changed so much that the room felt different. Despite 40 years of preparation, William never expected this story. From childhood, he was prepared to preserve a sophisticated heritage and rigid decorum. Every gesture to a dignitary, every handshake with a president, and every camera-captured smile was a regal act. He had read the script, memorized the choreography, and prepared for the inevitable handover, father to son king to heir duty to duty. King Charles changed the story with a few well-chosen words in his latter years. It was more than a succession declaration, it shook the Constitution. Charles spoke confidently, but William felt it like a thunderclap. The crown, the symbol of the monarchy, has grown. Collaboration would replace individual accountability. Catherine was no longer just the queen consort in anticipation, a peripheral helper. She stood by him as a live symbol of a modern monarchy based on communal authority, not hierarchy. William briefly felt the floor tilt. Admiration and the intimidating humility that comes with realizing that legacy must be nurtured and shared, not jealousy or damaged pride, caused this sensation. His lifelong view was that leadership was solitary. Formal portraits showed monarchs alone. History seldom acknowledges the quiet fortitude of those who ruled alongside them. He noticed what was previously invisible as his father's comments faded into the room's silence. Catherine's constant presence guided him. Her serenity in public, her compassion in private anguish, and her subtle need for order amid royal upheaval had all led to this moment. He suddenly realized the future no longer centered on thrones and dynasties. Attained balance, Reframing power to enable compassion and boldness was the goal. Reality frightened him. This was his first time without playing a role he had rehearsed. He entered a world no monarch had experienced. He wondered whether he was insufficient. What if the world that adored his mother and probed his father rejected this new paradigm? What if history saw him as the indecisive ruler who doubted himself? Among his thoughts, a delicate touch appeared. Catherine gently stroked his back. There were no words or reassuring whispers, yet there was deep understanding. That one gesture reassured him more than any speech. Her calmness transformed his worry. It reminded him that genuine strength is the determination to overcome fear. Their eyes met. Silent message, you are not alone. In their short connection, the silence became otherworldly. This was the genuine coronation, but cameras may never record it. This is when the person behind the crown recognized that fragility is part of humanity, not weakness. Humanity defined true leadership. For millennia, the monarchy has symbolized perseverance. A new force emerged in this restrained fight between destiny and uncertainty. Instead of tradition's weight-embraced transformation, William inhaled, straightened, and let go of the table. His tempest changed shape, not dissipated. It became purposeful. Catherine kept her composure and hand. He saw his prospective self in her serenity, not his expected self. They represented the subtle but powerful idea that modern leadership must combine beauty with resilience, authority with compassion, and autonomy with obedience. His burden will remain, but it no longer looks unique. This will be a turning moment. It marked a fundamental change for William, a guy learning to lead in partnership rather than dominating. Assembly as judgment tribunal. Understanding the background helps explain this change. Imagine Windsor Castle's stone hallways where each echo carries countless mysteries. Sunlight from stained glass windows illuminated the marble floor for coronations and royal feasts. This was not a memorial day. Not a carriage passed past the gates. Military bands were absent from the quadrangle. Outside the castle walls, people browsed feeds and boarded trains. These limitations needed destiny revision. Royal family elders met in the grand drawing room. A chamber of reckoning has replaced the hall formerly used for formal portraits and chandeliers. Each face showed the controlled fear of people who had seen much but understood nothing. Not the silence of a library, but the tense stillness before a revelation surrounded the room. They waited with the scent of ancient wood beeswax and polished silver. The mantel clock ticked quietly, becoming louder. The reason for their call was unknown. Not quite. They knew it was about King Charles III and his legacy. Princess Anne entered with the certainty of a powerful and responsible person. Her step was firm, her expression enigmatic. She wore no jewelry or ceremonial clothes. Instead, she acted like someone who had to face problems others could not handle. He wrote his last message in his wobbly handwriting before his recent health deterioration in a sealed envelope in her hand. All eyes were on her. Even people who had never feared her now felt awe and terror. Her specifically, why not presumptive heir William? Why not hire a royal advisor with experience in critical constitutional matters? Why not the Archbishop of Canterbury, who has crowned monarchs? Charles trusted her, so the room's unspoken reaction was visible. Perhaps more than anybody else. Without flattery or prestige, shared tragedies experienced in silence during a lifetime of service developed the trust. Anne stopped in the center of the room near the large fireplace where royal proclamations had been made. She ran her hand over the royal crest-printed crimson wax seal. The moment lingered like a breath. Fracture. Breach of seal. The events that followed appeared almost sacred. The sheet shook slightly when she unfolded it. Paper rustled louder than the wind outside. These are His Majesty, King Charles III's last comments regarding the succession of spirit within this house. she remarked softly, echoing over the room. No one moved. Clenched jaw. William. Queen Camilla's gloved hands were on her lap. Catherine, usually graceful and calm, stayed still, yet her eyes showed a repressed eagerness. Anne read on her voice steady but full of passion, unlike the Princess Royal. The king's speech focused on redemption, not ceremonial or crown burden. Regarding legacy, to swiftly restore the monarchy's virtue and public faith. An unexpected turn of events followed. His letter named Catherine, Princess of Wales, as the only savior, not his son, or the historic order. As Anne said the words that changed the room's ambiance, the paper shook slightly. I entrust the future of this house and my legacy to the person whose grace is humble and strong our moral compass. Catherine, direct what I could not rescue. The silence was oppressive. All eyes were on Catherine, who seemed frozen. William momentarily seemed confused, then proud, ambiguity assistance. Nobody could tell immediately. Anne carefully folded the letter, watching Catherine. Room atmosphere has altered. The atmosphere was significant. What did Charles see in her? Was it her quiet resilience, or how she blended modernity and tradition? Had he foreseen approaching turbulence that only her constant presence could calm? No one had the audacity to initiate the conversation. The family, used to control and propriety, suddenly found itself on the brink of unpredictability. The letter was beyond mere communication of a king's desires. It delineated the boundary between the past and the impending future. The sky outside darkened as clouds amassed over Windsor like silent observers. History redirected its focus. The narrative of the monarchy, once defined by birthright and inheritance, has now evolved into one characterized by personal merit and decision-making. Catherine, still sitting, eventually raised her gaze. Her voice was little above a whisper, but it resonated across the room with impeccable clarity. Therefore, let his words remain unforgotten. The established order begins to destabilize. The goodbye transformed into a manifesto, and the letter, previously just writing on paper, sparked something much more profound than sorrow. It initiated the first peaceful revolution inside the House of Windsor, one characterized not by insurrection, but by rejuvenation. The messenger's concealed responsibility, the rationale behind Princess Anne. To comprehend the significance of the message, one must value the messenger. Princess Anne was never an arbitrary selection. She was the indomitable thread uniting the regal fabric, the silent strength that persevered while others failed. For decades, she remained steadfastly supportive of her brother Charles, enduring years that saw the monarchy's turmoil, damage, and near collapse. Scandals arrived in succession, some murmured, some thunderous, but Anne remained steadfast. She never sought acclaim nor succumbed to criticism. She was the unwavering presence, diligent, disciplined, and completely impervious to the allure of stardom that often ensnares people born into affluence. While some pursued cameras and sought affirmation, while others saw monarchy as a spectacle, she regarded it as a vocation. She had no need for glitter or gossip, nor any necessity to validate her value by charm or theatrics. Her existence exemplified quiet resilience, illustrating that genuine impact does not need ostentation. Each ribbon she severed, every handshake she engaged in, and every isolated community she saw exemplified a lady who had made service instinctual. When King Charles, feeble and contemplative in his last considerations, determined that just one individual would convey his last message to the inner circle, there was no dissent. It must have been Anne. In her, he saw the quintessence of constancy, the last sentinel of a waning order. He placed his faith in her not alone due to their familial bond, but because she was the sole individual who had never undermined the institution, the only one who had remained steadfast when devotion had waned in popularity. As Anne stood in the grand drawing room, the atmosphere laden with expectancy, she embodied the connection between the reign of Elizabeth II and the ambiguous future. Her speech was composed, but each syllable resonated with the impact of a subdued explosion. Her voice remained steady. It pierced the quiet with accuracy, transmuting the letter from simple words into history being contemporaneously rewritten. Upon reaching the last line, the room had transformed. No applause followed, simply a profound calm that seemed hallowed. The courtiers exchanged looks, some apprehensive, others informed. The younger royals adjusted in their chairs, their thoughts inscrutable. Anne meticulously folded the paper with the same care she had used when unfolding it. Her expression disclosed no personal emotion, only the composure of a lady who recognized that her obligation was to execute rather than to experience. King Charles has reinvented monarchy as a commitment to serve rather than an entitlement. Through Anne's composed determination, the delicate monarchy regained its equilibrium. It was not a speech, it was an accounting. A voice from the grave. The prophecy of Elizabeth. However, the drama did not culminate only with Charles's remarks. Princess Anne executed a last maneuver that would alter the equilibrium of the whole room and affirm the validity of the request. From the inside pocket of her meticulously tailored coat, she extracted an object that was little fragile and antiquated. A note, its edges aged and yellowed, its paper softened from prolonged storage. The royal seal was subtle but recognizable. It was inscribed in the handwriting of Queen Elizabeth II. The room became quiet when Anne revealed it. The handwriting, however worn, had the poised elegance of a lady who had navigated the tumult of the 20th and 21st centuries. Initially, just a single sentence was discernible, composed with the linguistic economy for which the late Queen was renowned. She will be the cornerstone that unifies everything. Uncomplicated words, but they resonated with the force of thunder. All eyes were directed upon Catherine. Those acquainted with the late Queen understood instantly. Elizabeth never talked frivolously. Every phrase she abandoned had significance, a feeling of prescience that approached the prophetic. This was the sovereign who had endured wars, scandals, revolutions, and competing empires. Her senses about individuals were renowned. She could discern loyalty like sailors interpret the wind. Thus, when she composed that statement, she must have seen qualities in Catherine that others overlooked. She had observed her silently throughout the years, amid incessant headlines, murmurs of competition, and the unseen but burdensome demands of monarchy. Catherine had undergone examination, evaluation, and assessment. Throughout it all, she remained steadfast. She smiled as the cameras illuminated, inclined her head in accordance with tradition, and maintained her composure in adversity. What many saw as frailty or passivity had in fact been strength all along, steel concealed behind silk. Elizabeth's note showed no evidence of partiality. It was not love, it was evaluation. Composed, measured sovereign adjudication. She evaluated Catherine not just as a granddaughter-in-law, but as a prospective pillar of the crown. Elizabeth recognized that her serenity was innate rather than cultivated. Her benevolence was not an act, it was intrinsic to her nature. Where others pursued power, Catherine pursued meaning. She was a unifier capable of reconciling the old guard with the contemporary world, as well as procedure with individuals. Anne raised her gaze from the letter, her demeanor transitioning from determination to veneration. Her voice, resolute but kind, resonated across the hall. Mother composed this years before her demise. She said, her gaze fixed on Catherine. She said that Catherine would be the one to maintain cohesion. I agree that she was correct. The passion in Anne's comments was unmistakable. She had also observed Catherine over the years. She saw her standing silently next to William, not in his shadow, but as his equal. She saw that she garnered the goodwill of palace staff, the media, and the public not via ostentatious acts, but through genuine empathy. As Anne articulated her thoughts, the note evolved from a mere artifact into a profound insight. It was not only an endorsement, it constituted a legacy, a cryptic communique from a queen to her heirs, predicting who would assume leadership in times of uncertainty. Catherine remained still, her hands intertwined, her expression serene. However, underneath her composed demeanor, the tumult of awareness must have been profound. The burden of legacy became palpably evident. The late Queen's handwriting designating her as the cornerstone, the notion that fate may have selected her long before her awareness was profound. Anne refolded the letter delicately, placing it back inside her coat, as if reinstating a holy manuscript to its rightful location. The ensuing stillness was not void, it was abundant, characterized by contemplation, admiration, and a touch of disquiet. The message not only bestowed modest glory upon Catherine, but also bore a shadow, a prophecy realized only via forthcoming difficulties. What did Elizabeth really perceive in those latter years? Indeed, strength. However, there may also be sorrow, sacrifice, and solitude, the unseen burdens of being the support that maintains a deteriorating structure. Queen Catherine's transformation. How did a Berkshire girl become so confident? Catherine's journey resembles a fairy tale without much fantasy. A story of endurance, beauty, and subtle brilliance. Noble lineage did not protect her. As individuals build ambitions, the Middletons built their reality brick by brick. Carol and Michael Middleton taught their children that elegance is not riches, and that class is more about character than titles. Their family's poise, humility, and fortitude outshone any royal treasure. Catherine was charming at school with her confidence and poise. She was neither the loudest nor the most attention-seeking. However, she stood out readily. Teachers praised her quiet determination, and pupils praised her charity. Through example, she led. St. Andrew's University, a fateful institution, followed. Catherine met William in an old lecture hall among textbooks and laughter. He was a young man like others, trying to find his way, not a prince or sensationalized persona. They started with study sessions, shared meals, and casual conversations. Despite its simplicity, something real was building. A slow, unshakable relationship unaffected by nobility or public life. When the world recognized her, weighty Katie headlines began. The media made fun of her restraint as a lack of ambition. Catherine pursued a longer plan. She analyzed, learned, and planned. While the 2011 wedding was a global sensation, the real story began thereafter. Royal life was full of expectations, conventions, and unwritten rules. Each deed, remark, and outfit became a headline. Such inquiry would shatter confidence like glass beneath one's feet for many. Catherine, ever present, navigated it well. Her grace, shyness, and technique protected her. She smiled through hardships, talked little but eloquently, and transformed from a commoner married to a prince into a queen. She chose her causes for their importance, not their appeal. She advocated for mental health and early childhood development with compassion. At a mental health conference, she added, "William and I are so glad to be here with you," in a kind tone. "We are really concerned about mental health. A commitment, not just a statement." Catherine became known for her ideals rather than her clothes. She succeeded at subtle leadership in a loud conventional workplace. Others relied on titles. She relied on substance. She slowly, methodically, and with aim, revived the monarchy rather than overthrowing it. Today, she is a consort to a future king and a creator of a reformed monarchy that represents humanity anew. The fairy tale exterior hides a resilient woman who balances duty and elegance. Her story shows the power of the everyday, not just love or heritage. One does not need royal blood to win respect. One must be sincere, bold, and indomitable. Apprentice mentor. Relationship beyond obligation. Queen Elizabeth II and Catherine's relationship was one of the monarchy's most successful quiet achievements. The Queen began observing Catherine after she revealed her relationship with William. She watched Kate from afar to measure her calm. William said Kate received 20 years of the Queen's wisdom and support. This was true. The Queen's impact predated formal presentations. Her daily life showed responsibility. The first thing Kate learned was patience. The Queen valued moderation over rashness. After Kate and William's 2010 engagement, the Queen began more personal mentorship. There was no classroom training, simply subtle situational coaching. She learned how to depart a carriage, gracefully receive flowers, meet foreign dignitaries, and navigate state dinner customs from the Queen. The Queen stressed normalcy beyond formality. The Queen approved of the couple's move to Anglesey, Wales during William's RAF service. It brought back thoughts of her simple Malta nuptials to Prince Philip. She said that ordinary tasks like cooking and shopping would provide Kate stability and insight. Afternoon teas, private car rides, and philosophical debates about civic duty and personal happiness forged their bond. Kate shows thanks with small, heartfelt gestures. She gave the Queen a jar of her grandmother's homemade chutney on her first Christmas at Sandringham, nervous about finding a gift for the Queen, who had everything. The act was little yet moved Her Majesty. The Queen recognized in Kate a young woman who valued honesty above superficiality. The Queen identified the traits that unite a family and a monarchy: calm faithfulness, emotional intelligence, and subtle fortitude. After Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, the world remembered her commitment. Catherine softly carries her greatest legacy. The late Queen raised Kate to be graceful, sympathetic, and steady through years of observation and delicate counsel. A new era begins. One concern remains for the public after Windsor's disclosure. This edict may have been King Charles's response to Queen Elizabeth's last plea or his own recognition of the changing world. Response appears to include both parts. Many criticize the monarchy for stagnation, although it has modernized. King Charles and the late Queen ensured Prince William would not rule alone by elevating Catherine to shared moral authority. The fall of Prince William was a start. It removed the outdated idea that a king must be alone. William realized his strength comes from teamwork by agreeing to his father's wish and grandmother's predictions. Rewritten script. The stage is ready. A queen in spirit, if not in name, whose grace has become the monarchy's salvific characteristic, helps the House of Windsor face the challenges of a new century. What do you think of this royal shift? Is Catherine the pillar the late Queen envisioned? Post your comments below.